afternoon and welcome to today's licensing hearing. First item on the agenda is the election of the chair. I know that members would like Councillor Cuthbertson to chair the meeting. Are members in agreement with this? Great. Thank you. I'll now hand over to the chair. Sorry, Councillor Cuthbertson, I think you're on mute.
Councillor Cuthbertson, you're still on mute, I'm afraid.
Councillor Cuthbertson, you're still on mute. If you could unmute, please. It's Richard here. Yeah, that's working now. Thank you, Councillor.
I'm sorry about that. I have unmuted myself 3 times, but I was promptly silenced after each one. Anyway, welcome to this licensing hearing. As well as being a live webcast, the recording of this hearing will be made available to view on the council's website after the meeting has taken place. I'd like to introduce everybody. I'm Councillor Ian Cuthbertson. I'm chairing this meeting. My colleagues from the council are Councillor Mason
and Councillor Anne Hook.
Thank you. And we have some officers with us. We have Leslie Cook, who's our licensing manager, Margot Budravecchiote, who is our clerk and general factotum, and Jodie Ingram, our legal advisor. And I'm not sure, Jodie, if we have somebody sitting in with you from the legal point of view.
I think we have Reese with us. He is observing with Democratic Services today. Okay.
Also present are Mr. Joseph Moore, the applicant. Yes. And Mr. Rosell, who is one of the 2 representatives. The other one, Tracy Walters, is not going to be with us, I understand. Is that your understanding too, Mr. Rosell?
Yes, Tracy's my wife. She's on a ministerial call at the moment. She's a civil servant.
Right. Okay, thank you. In which case, we're in a position to proceed, and we'll start with declarations of interest from any member here, but particularly members of council. Are there any declarations? None from Councillor Mason, none from Councillor Hook. Now, at the end of this meeting, we will be moving into private mode to deal with our deliberations and then proceed to a conclusion. And for that, we need to exclude both the press and the public and the applicant and representative. So are members agreeable to the resolution at item 4 on the agenda?
Yeah, happy.
Councillor Hook too? Yes, thank you. Okay, so the first item beyond that is the minutes of the previous meeting. Yeah. Seem to have mislaid these. Jodie, could you advise me what page they're on, please?
Having a look in the agenda, I don't think the minutes are actually attached to the agenda.
For some reason it disappeared, so ignore that. Sorry.
The minutes of the hearings held on the 19th of July and the 24th are not actually physically present.
Nope, they've disappeared. So ignore that minutes section and proceed on to agenda item 6, if that's okay.
Right, so we'll proceed to item 6, and Margot, will you ensure that the minutes are presented at the next next hearing, please?
Yes, I will do.
Good, thank you. Okay, so in order to determine the application, can I just check that everybody is happy with the procedure to be followed and the timings for each person, which are in theory a maximum. We do have a little bit of flexibility. So if you've got a 15-minute slot, and if it needs to go on a little bit longer than that, then we have a bit of patience, Mr. Rosell and Mr. Mason. Sorry, Mr. Moore, I beg your pardon. Okay, so we'll start then with the licensing manager's report from Leslie Cook. Leslie, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the application for the grant of a premises licence for 46 Walmgate, York. The licensable activities applied for are live and recorded music indoors from 10 AM until 11 PM every day, late night refreshment from 11 PM until 1 AM every day, and the supply of alcohol on and off the premises from 10 AM until 11 PM Sunday to Thursday, and 10 AM until midnight Friday and Saturday. I must apologise, there is an error in the report on page 9 with regards to the hours for the supply of alcohol. It should be 11 o'clock and not 11:30 as stated in the agenda. A copy of the application and plan can be found at Annex 1. The premises is described in the application as a small ground floor cafe and wine bar. An overview of the circumstances in which entertainment activities are not licensable can be found at Annex 2. As part of the application, the operating schedule submitted by the applicant showing how the licensing objectives would be met can be found at paragraphs 10 to 14 on page 10 of the report. I can confirm that the premises are not located within the community impact assessment area. I can also confirm that the consultation process was carried out correctly. There are no representations before you today from responsible authorities. North Yorkshire Police has mediated with the applicant, who has agreed to amend the operating schedule. The agreed conditions can be found at Annex 3. City of York Council's Public Protection team have mediated with the applicant, who has agreed to amend the operating schedule, agreeing that regulated entertainment activities will cease at 2300 hours. As regulated entertainment is only a licensable activity after 2300 hours, this effectively removes the need for entertainment from the application. There has been one relevant representation from other persons. The representative's details can be found at Annex 4. The representation is predominantly based on the grounds of the prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance. Their representation can be found at Annex 5. A map showing the general area around the premises can be found at Annex 6. The committee has the following options when making your decision. Option 1, grant the licence in the terms applied for. Option 2, grant the licence with modified additional conditions imposed by the licensing committee. Option 3, grant the licence to exclude any of the licensable activities to which the application relates and modify add conditions accordingly. Option 4, reject the application. That's an overview of the report, Chair.
Thank you, Leslie. Can I just check the options that you've just listed? You got to option 4 there, and I've got 5 in front of me on page 12 of the agenda.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Yeah, you can also refuse the person that's specified on the application as the designated supervisor.
Okay. Sorry, I'd switched off temporarily and I realised that you'd said 4 and not 5. Anyway, okay. Is that the end of your report?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, we'll ask for any questions for the licensing manager. First of all, from the applicant, Mr. Moore.
I just want to go through a few things of which won't take me nowhere near 15 minutes of what I think I've done in my best knowledge. The first one is the venue is in line with similar venues in the area. I actually disagree with the complainant regarding the area being majority residential.
Mr. Moore, can I just interject a second? Sorry to interrupt you. The chair asked you if you got any questions from me with regards to the report.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Everything what you've said, I agree with.
Right, okay. It was just the opportunity to tidy up any points that you might have thought were still outstanding at that time, Mr. Moore. Okay, Mr. Rosell, any questions from you for the licensing manager?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in that case, as subcommittee members, Councillor Mason, Councillor Hook, no questions from you either, I see. Thank you very much. In that case, we'll go on to Mr. Moore, covering the points that I think he was starting on then. And you have 15 minutes, Mr. Moore, and if you've exhausted it by 10 minutes, then we'll move on to the next matter. But if you do need to go on longer than 15 minutes, then please let us know, and we have some flexibility. No
problem. So back to my original one is that I believe that the venue is in line with similar venues in the area. I guess I disagree with the complainant saying that it's majority residential in the area. I've complied with the responsible authorities on the conditions to ensure licensing objectives have been met. That I'm only a small venue, and that all customers will be seated and table service will be provided. I'm not trying to achieve a large bar with anywhere between 50 and 100, 150, like say, for instance, Yates's Slug and Lettuce and Revolution type bars. We're not encouraging large groups of hens or stags to come in, which, as we probably all know, York is very popular with these. It's a very small bar with limited availability of seating, which would be somewhere around 30. We're trying to aim more at couples rather than large groups, and I think that what we're trying to create is a small, friendly local bar for locals, not necessarily aimed at tourists or stag and hen do's. There's also no vertical drinking. Everybody who's drinking needs to be sat down, and that's more or less all I've got to say on the matter. And I'm welcome to any questions if anybody has any concerns of what we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. And that indeed is the next item on the agenda. Questions for the applicant. First of all, from the representatives. Mr. Rosell, if you've got any questions lined up from Tracy Walters, then do please include those.
Yes, thank you. The questions I've got sorry, Mr. Cuthbertson, I'm not sure if this is interactive or whether the questions I've got are, I'd be interested in Mr. Moore's assessment of the fact that it's not a residential area. I live here and I can assert it absolutely is a majority residential area. So I'm interested in evidence around that. And actually the other one is a concern rather than a question. But I do have a prepared statement. I'm not sure if you want me to read that now or whether you're just interested in questions.
Well, you have 50 minutes to put your case, if there's a case to report. And if you don't, I mean, if you feel that the concern you've got could be dealt with by way of a question or two, then, please pursue it that way. But otherwise, if you want to read your prepared statement under your second representer's case, which you'll see further down the agenda. Is that okay?
Yeah, if you're asking me to hang on to do that, I'll do that. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Do you want to raise any of your concerns in the form of a question?
Well, I'm interested in what further plans. That sounds like a very small establishment.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what further plans Mr. Moore or his organisation might have to expand or to vary the facility.
Yep. Okay, so Mr. Moore, do you want to respond to that point?
There's no further plans to expand because there's nowhere else we can go in that particular building to extend either side or backwards. Just to give him hopefully a bit of confidence in knowing that I know what I'm doing. I'm York born and bred. I've been in York for 56 years. I've had various licensed premises over the last 20 years, and I've ran premises where the capacity has been up to 200 people. And I've also run smaller places, and this isn't something what I want to start buying further properties up the street to expand into other properties to make it twice as big or 3 times as big. One thing I've learned in the licensing trade, unless you're one of the big boys, is big doesn't mean best and you earn more money. Small, compact, smaller, betterly run is what I'm trying to aim for Walmgate. And my family, my dad and my grandmother and all of us were born and bred in Walmgate. I don't disagree that there isn't any residential, is there? We know there is, but down the bottom end of Walmgate, going from number 60, heading towards town centre, towards Fossgate Bridge, majority of that area are shops on both sides of the road all the way down. Not all of them have residentials above, some do, some don't. I believe the complainants from the flats in the back of there, what used to be, is it called John Summit House, the big block of the flats, and I read his complaint about the Canadian music or noise from the what used to be the Five Lions pub further down, which is now called the Watergate. They have a massive big beer garden facing the river, decked out what could probably sleep up to probably 30, 40, 50 people. So the noise what he's hearing is from external, and ours is only a small ground floor internal operation. So I'm not new to the game, and I don't want him to think I'm a young lad just come into the game. I've been in the licensing trade for over 20 years.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do the subcommittee have any questions for the applicant? Councillor Hook.
Thank you, Chair. My only question is really about this plan, and there's 3 round things just under the bar. Is that additional seating that's not on the tables?
No, the bar's that small. There won't be no seating at the bar. I think the girl who did the plan for me was just doing like an artist's impression drawing of it, where it would show 3 people. The bar's literally 2 meters 200 long. So the idea is that it's a bar where you're going to be served to the waiter rather than you standing at the bar or sitting at the bar to have a drink. Because of the length of it, it's only literally 2 meters long.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mason, anything from you?
Yes, please. A few things. I suppose, Mr. Moore, just off that one, obviously, when we condition the licence, particularly because of the conditions the police are suggesting, if we were minded to grant it and condition it, I think it's around fixed seating and waiter service. I presume you're happy with the rest of the plan in terms of how it's laid out and numbers of seats. That's definitely accurate, apart from those 3 bar stools.
I think I haven't actually got the drawing with me, but I think it was around 25 to 30 people sat down. If somebody can just enlighten me.
Testing my maths now. So look, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20. Yeah, I think about 26 is it? I think if I counted right, 26 or 22, and I've miscounted one. But anyway, as long as you're happy, because obviously if that's what we give you the numbers on, that's what the numbers would be. So I just wanted to give you that chance that if you you don't think that's accurate, then to say.
No, I would say the numbers would be up to 30, depending how the seats are set out, but somewhere similar to what there is on the plan. I think I got it to 27 or 28, but if it's 26, then it's somewhere around that. But basically, we don't want no vertical drinking in there. So in the even high tables shown where, say, 3 lads could stand round with a pint in their hand, stood up round a small circle table, what's say 1.5 metres high. All the tables are going to be low level, sat at a normal dining chair type of level.
My only other question is, what's the plan for the rest of the property, I suppose, in terms of, is it residential upstairs? Is it storage? What's the plan up there?
There's storage in the back and there's residential upstairs.
Residential, you've got control over in terms of your tenants, or?
Yeah, they're my tenants.
And then my last question was, I think it's important what you said about having a track record in the industry. I just wondered if you're happy to say a bit more about the kind of venues you've run. I think yes. Probably from I suppose the reason I think it's relevant is from point of view of the committee is I think that's taken into account that if someone's run responsible venues before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to object about that, I'm going to ask Mr. Cuthbertson if I'm allowed to come in at this point, please.
Are you objecting to the question?
Yeah, I certainly am. Mr. Moore's reputation is well known. I did my research, but I can't imagine the committee members aren't aware of Mr. Moore, since he's in his 3rd generation of living in and around. I feel like as a complainant, I'm feeling like he's got an opportunity to make some sort of sales presentation. I don't think that's appropriate.
I've got absolutely no idea who Mr. Moore is, what bars he's run, anything. I've come here with an open mind, read the papers I've been issued with, and I'm asking him a question. Happy for the legal advisor to comment.
I think that's the right thing to do.
I think under the circumstances, you've asked a question about the history. I don't see any reason why we would prevent Mr. Moore from answering your question, Councillor Mason.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rosell, if you want to return to that point in some way in your 15 minutes, then please do. But as Councillor Mason has pointed out, we need to start with an open mind and without assumptions. So, Mr. Moore, if you could answer Councillor Mason's question, please.
I originally had Tokyo Joe's, which was on Swinegate, which was a Japanese restaurant, and then we later, when Wagamama's and Yo Sushi owned it, Gilda's, so we later changed it to a restaurant called The Blind Swine, and this was on Swinegate opposite Biltmore, which more people are maybe familiar with that premises. And then after that premises, or while I had that premises, I had a sports bar on Fawcett Street, what I ran for a number of years, which is number 2 Fawcett Street, which has later become a Chinese restaurant. While I had it, it was just a sports bar. And that was the one what I was referring to, where I've had licensed premises where we've had up to 150 people in. And obviously sports bar does create or get large groups, hens and stags, and lots of groups of football supporters, which are very, or can be very noisy. And then I've got a restaurant in Walmgate, what's called the Right Place, which is at number 19 Walmgate, which is opposite the Watergate Inn. And like I say, I have a wide vocabulary of running these premises where you've gone from a quiet wine bar with cheese and biscuits and posh pizzas to a large, noisy, loud venue of a football sports type of bar, and then a high-class restaurant. And this is just going to be a small, not very many people in. Part of the alcohol thing side of it is, with the experience I've had, it's very difficult to make money in these trades if you're not offering the full berth of what you can do from the premises. So if you did it without alcohol, would people come in on a night and not drink and eat small type of tapas type food? So for it to work, I need it to be able to do food and alcohol. Is that enough background, or does anybody want any more?
That's fine for me. My only last question, obviously the police have put conditions on about offering the menu. I don't think we've got a copy of the menu, or I couldn't see one in the pack.
No.
I just wondered if you could talk us through what the menu looks like.
The menu hasn't been designed yet because the chef hasn't been employed yet because of the delays what we've been having. So it's going to be small tapas type of food, very small plates, where you're somewhere around the £5 mark, where you might, if you and your wife was going, you'd probably have maybe 5 or 6 of these small plates of like Spanish style tapas type of things, or we'll do posh toasties where it's not just got cheese and ham on, it's got more exotic ingredients, if that's the word. So just small plates where it's not the type of place where I would imagine you'd want to go if you was going out for a 3-course meal or a big 32-ounce steak or something like that. It's something where you just want a nibble away and have a nice drink.
You're talking about something like a tapas bar, Mr. Moore.
Sorry?
It sounds like something like a tapas bar,
Yeah.
Mr. Moore. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Chair. No more questions from me.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Okay, I don't have any questions. So we'll move then on to Mr. Rizal making his case as second representative and including any points that Tracy Walker would have made as well, if you wish.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a prepared statement to read, which is as follows. The area that we live in, which is approximately 25 metres from the premises in question, there's a wonderful sense of community. Social housing, students and private accommodation all living cheek by jowl, which we truly hope to preserve and indeed build upon. There are few ordinary shops in the immediate vicinity for local residents to make use of, but an incredibly large number of bars, restaurants, and pubs, popular with visitors, students and tourists, but not frequented by local people, many of whom can't afford to eat out or drink in wine bars in any event. So the application for this license is sadly another example of a shop that was previously a hairdresser's becoming yet another bar. This is a slippery slope, I feel. I cannot think of any premises up and down Fossgate and Walmgate, which once they've become empty, haven't become a bar or a restaurant. It's just lowest common denominator, unimaginative stuff, and it will potentially destroy this community. Furthermore, the many and manifest issues already mentioned by Mr. Moore, but reported on the Watergate Inn, which is about 3 doors away from me, in relation to noise levels and the antisocial behaviour that ensues, particularly in the summertime, on exiting those premises. And it feels as though we're in danger of no longer living in a residential area. Fossgate and Walmgate could look like the Bushy Road, which is bars and restaurants and cafes, but it also has a hardware store, hairdressers, cobblers, dry cleaners, bakers, and a general store, as well as Sainsbury's as well. So our street needs to meet the needs of its local people, as well as those 8.6 million or whatever the number is that are visiting York. Which brings me on to the issue of the late license. As if it wasn't bad enough that yet another shop is being turned into a bar, the application before you is for a late license, which would mean a negative impact on local residents due to increased noise levels and unsociable hours. We cannot imagine that customers leaving after very late night drinking are going to be quiet and respect the neighbours. And the councils and York bids already stretched resources will, I doubt, be increased to cope with this added burden. Drunk people don't see signs asking them to respect the neighbours. Once they've left the premises, the bar is no longer responsible for their behaviour. In fact, I would argue that many bars aren't even responsible for the behaviour of their customers when they're in the premises. As it is, we wake now to vomit in our street from intoxicated people who've drunk too much, and granting this license is only likely to exacerbate the problem, in our view. If you don't live here, and I understand, Mr. Moore, you live a couple of miles outside the city centre, why should you care if people vomit in the local vicinity when you can simply walk away and someone else is going to clean up their mess? As you'll be aware, the majority of licenses on Walmgate are with restaurant conditions, and I understand and hear and respect the restaurant conditions being applied for here, which are that sales of all alcohol shall be served at tables, not vertical, and customers shall remain seated whilst consuming alcohol, and that loud music will not be played. Whilst this application states that customers will only be served by waiting staff, this will not diminish the likelihood of customers drinking excessively or residents being disturbed late at night. So the proposal before you is to serve food up to 9 p.m. only, but to sell alcohol up until 11:30. I understand that's been revised to 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursdays, and not closed to the public until 1 a.m. on a Friday and a Saturday, meaning that as other pubs and bars close, people will drift already drunk into this bar to be able to carry on drinking alcohol. So I can't deny the commercial savviness of Mr. Moore's proposal, but societally or communitarily, if there is such a word, not so much. The proposal also states that regulated entertainment and live music will be played until 11 p.m. every night, meaning that it will be heard by local residents, especially during the warmer months when the doors are left open, disturbing local residents and their families who need to get up early the following day to go about their business. And I would also, it's not written down here, many of the local properties, my own included, post-COVID, we're all working from home now. So John Walker House, where I live, and I think you referenced earlier, Mr. Moore. So I work out of my office now 3-4 days a week, and so it's morphing into something else as well, as an enhanced level of communityship, one might argue. So the application before you is not for a restaurant license, primarily for a late night bar, essentially late license with entertainment, simply not in keeping with our lovely street. As local residents, we have no objections to people having a meal and enjoying alcohol with that meal, but it's not Regia Street or Micklegate, and we don't want it to become like that. We don't want drunks spilling out into our neighbourhood in the early hours of morning, being sick, urinating, or worse. We love living in Central York, and we have pride in our local neighbourhood, and we have a close neighbour who owns a late night bar, but when her customers leave her premises, they don't spill out into a local residential area, they spill out onto Stonegate, which I believe Mr. Moore also referenced earlier on. And I can see a case for containing late night drinking within that immediate locale. So my primary concern or rejection is not necessarily the issuing of a license per se, it's the late night aspect of that license. And we asked the committee to vote for option 4, rejection of the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rizal. Pardon me. I'm going to ask now for questions from the applicant for you, and then from the subcommittee members. So, Mr. Moore, if you've got any questions for Mr. Rizal, do please ask them now, or we can move on if you don't have any.
As for one of his neighbours, what has a bar in Stonegate, when they spill out at whatever time they're closing, does he know what the capacity of that bar is and how many people there are in that bar and surrounding bars? It's a bit unfair to put mine alongside that when mine is going to have a maximum of 30 people in, and I'm sure Kennedy's bar in Stonegate has a capacity of probably 100.
No, I'm not an expert in this area, Mr. Moore. I'm an expert in what happens after the establishments close, because I witness it on a daily basis.
And can I ask you how long you've lived in Walmgate?
Yeah, well, we moved here September the 23rd, 2013. We're refugees from the south, as you can probably tell.
And how many licensed pubs there are in Walmgate now?
Well, I'm not sure you'd expect me to know the answer to that, but I can tell you the number's going in the wrong direction.
Well, there's only 2 actual pubs in Walmgate, and there used to be about 25. And Micklegate, comparing Walmgate to Micklegate Run, where Micklegate used to have about 30 pubs from Micklegate Bar to George Hudson Street, it's one extreme to the other.
Yeah, I agree. And my concern is that we don't want to become like Regia Street or Micklegate has become. My concern is the protection of this neighbourhood and the preservation of communityship.
And just for the record, I don't live 2 miles. I actually live on Lauren Street, which is about 500 metres from Walmgate. And I also have lived in Walmgate for numerous years in my life, from being born. And up to 5 years ago, I lived at number 60 Walmgate. So I'm aware of the area. And just for those who may or may not be concerned, the crime or urinating and vomiting in the street, what are near the Spa shop, the one-stop shop, that end of Walmgate is totally different to the bottom end of the Walmgate where this applicant is, where I'm applying. And I think the complainant would also agree with that, with the homeless centre, Acro Centre, whatever it is, opposite the one-stop shop, where you see all the alcoholics and drug users going to get whatever they need to get.
Well, yeah, as a local resident, having lived here for 10 years, as I say, I've noticed the gentrification creep of Fossgate, which is a runaway success. We're really proud of that. And I'm certainly keen to emulate more of that. And I want to become this, I'm a business person too, and I want businesses to succeed here, but not at the cost of community. Mr. Mercer, I can't remember his first name, on Bishy Road has done an amazing job with that, and I think they're to be commended for that. I've got to believe there's a balance here of, yes, of course, businesses, jobs, all of that, but it's the late-nightedness that I'm particularly concerned about.
Okay. At that point, I see Councillor Mason's got a hand up.
Thanks, Chair.
Is it appropriate to ask whatever you want to ask at this point?
I suppose it's more just an observation for the representative to say that I do have a lot of sympathy with a lot of the things he talked about, but actually just to say that we can only deal with the 4 licensing objectives, and things like the music, like I think you probably heard, is deregulated anyway, and we have no control over that. So I just wanted to say that he raises some valid points, but not valid in the terms of determining the application.
Thank you. What I was concerned with is that it was beginning to develop into something of an argument there, and we understand both sides have got a case to put, but if you could put that case by means of questions rather than by statements, that would be really helpful. And when I say by statements, I mean in the terms of this section of the agenda. Okay, Mr. Moore, have you got any further questions?
No further questions. Okay,
thank you. Mr. Rizal, I'm going to ask members of the subcommittee if they've got any questions again on your case. Councillor Hook, anything from you? Okay. Councillor Mason, anything further from you?
I would just say, obviously the police have agreed conditions which they think will, deal with the crime and disorder type impact. Is there anything additionally you think, is there any reason you think those conditions aren't strong enough?
Sorry, is that directed to me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Rizal, I should have made that clearer, a bit clearer.
Yeah, so obviously those conditions the police have put on, I just wondered what your observations were and what your concerns were that they weren't strong enough to deal with any potential problems.
I want to, this is going to be a response, Mr. Cuthbert, so no, I haven't got a question in return, but my response is the difference between what happens on paper and what happens in practical terms in real life. The police, I know because I've had to ring 101 on multiple occasions about a couple of properties nearby, which have already been mentioned. And right opposite me, on the area immediately outside the Shambles car park, if you know that area next to the sort of pedestrian bridge, there's all kinds of drug dealing going on there. I'm not suggesting that's going to take place at this premises, but what I am saying is those resources that we've already referenced here are already incredibly stretched. So it's all very well having, yes, we want to see this happening or that happening, but those resources are stretched, and I suspect there's going to be no expansion of resources. Perhaps I could turn that into a question. Are those resources going to be expanded as a result of the increased number of applications, this one in particular?
This is questions to you, I'm afraid, but yeah, I mean, that's a challenge for all public funded authorities as to resources. But no, I just wondered what your observations were on the police conditions, but thank you.
Okay. In which case, Mr. Rizal, I don't know whether you wish to sum up in any way what you've just said, but I mean, you've been adequately clear in what you've said, but I don't know if you've got a brief opportunity now to sum up if you need that.
Sure. I was heartened to hear about the Right Place, Mr. Moore. Actually, I frequent that, and I'm a big fan of what they do in there. And I like that format. I'm not suggesting it's about what I like or what I don't like. It's about what's responsible, I think, for the area. So I am heartened to hear that it's going to be more like the Right Place and less like Tokyo Joe's or whatever it was you referenced earlier on. It's the late-nightedness of the late-night application that I'm more concerned about than the alcohol license per se. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rizal. We now have an opportunity for Mr. Moore to sum up what he has said, and perhaps in the light of any questions that have been asked to him.
Basically, my closing statement is that I would like to say that I've complied with all the responsible authority conditions what was put to me, and to ensure that the licence objectives are met, and to stipulate that it is only a very small venue, and I don't have anything else to say on the matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore, for that, and just want to ask if there are any final points of clarification from the subcommittee. Councillor Mason.
Thanks. Can I just ask a question for Leslie? Basically, is the Right Place as an example? What are their trading hours at the minute for alcohol, if she knows? I think that's pretty much opposite, isn't it?
Councillor Mason, I don't off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can find that information out for you though, if you wish, and Skype message Jodie.
I can have a quick look on the licensing register. I've got the computer up. I just wondered, just as a comparison.
I'm afraid
Nothing else, Chair.
I've got that system open at the moment to look that up. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I can look now.
Okay. Anything from
Nothing else.
Councillor Hook? I'm sorry.
Nothing else.
Right. Okay. Anything from Councillor Hook in that case? Okay. Well, both sides have had an opportunity to put their case and to be asked and to ask questions of by and of the other side. So we've now come to the point where, since there's no further points of clarification needed by the subcommittee, we're going to close the public hearing and reconvene in private for our deliberations. Mr. Moore, the outcome of this will come to you certainly within the next 5 working days. But at this point, effectively, since we don't know how long we're going to talk for, it's not fair to ask both applicant and representatives to sit and wait. So can I suggest that we close down your part of this now, and we'll continue with our private deliberation, and Margot and the legal team, Jodie's colleagues, will get back to you, Mr. Moore, with the result of the application and with our determination of the application. And Mr. Rizal, I don't know if either Jodie or Margot would perhaps let you know the outcome as well.
Yes, all the applicants and the representatives will be made aware of the outcome via email.
Okay. Cool. Okay, thank you. In that case, thank you very much for attending, Mr. Moore as applicant and Mr. Rizal on behalf of the representatives, and we'll put our heads down and have a conversation now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.